Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. Today's podcast is number 1576. The topic is mindset, and the title is, Do You Want to Be Extraordinary? Ooh. So in 2023, we've recently put up on the board in the gym asking members to put down on a Post-it note any questions they have, and then I'll make a podcast for them. So it's basically what we do in the podcast is I tell you every podcast to send me questions, and I'll answer them, and a lot of you do, so thank you very much. And we just started putting that on the board for the gym members, so that way they would have kind of an easier way to do it. It's easier for them just to write on a note card when they're thinking of it in the moment, rather than it is to maybe email or text. We just wanted to kind of make it easier for them, and then under the questions that they ask, we'll make a note card that has the podcast number for them to check out to hear their answer. So, on a note card, recently someone wrote, "Brilliance in the basics is how you win." And when I read that, it brought to mind a video I listened to a long time ago. And the video was about being extraordinary, extraordinary. It was a youth coach. He was a youth coach, and he turned into becoming like a public speaker. He was just very motivational, and I don't really know why he transitioned, from coaching into public speaking, but he was a very motivational guy. And when he said whenever he was a coach, he used to ask his athletes, how many of you dream of being extraordinary, extraordinary? And I think that's common. How many of us think about being above normal? We often think of trying to be great, or at least better than most, or better than our old self at something. Whether that's what we do at work, how we are doing in our relationships, how we do financially, maybe with how we look, working on aesthetics and building muscles or getting leaner. Maybe strength, you want to get super strong and lift every weight in the gym and impress everybody. But we all think of, or we all often want to be, extraordinary. But there was a reason why the speaker used the word extraordinary. Because in order to be extraordinary, you first have to be ordinary. So in order to be extra something, you have to first be that something. I can't get into the NFL Hall of Fame if I'm not in the NFL. So I can't be extraordinary until I'm at least ordinary. And that's what he would bring up with his athletes is, okay, well, if you want to be extraordinary, are you at least ordinary? Are you doing the basics? If I want to achieve what is above normal achievement, I have to do what's above normal doing. So we have to first do the basics. So as the person wrote on the card, brilliance in the basics is how you win. And that's true. You have to first do the basics. So what are the basics? What's the ordinary for what you want to achieve? If it's something related to the gym, if you're looking for fat loss, muscle building, changing your shape, getting leaner, building strength, great athlete, whatever it is that you want to achieve, if it's something in the gym, then the basics are stress management, sleep, hydration, nutrition, and then showing up for training. So just being consistent with how often you train. Those are the ordinary elements. How well are you doing at those things? How well are you doing at stress management? Do you even try to manage your stress? Or are you just reacting every day? You're frantic. You're always on edge. You're worn out. And you're just reacting to everything that happens to you. That is not an extraordinary mindset. That's not an extraordinary way to live your life. So you have to manage stress. You have to get control of stress before it controls you. Or, since it is controlling you now, you have to regain control. Now, we do have podcasts. I actually mentioned it in yesterday's podcast. It's podcast number 1023. It's a mindset podcast titled Stress Management, Options, and Priorities. So that podcast will help you learn how to better manage your stress. Another element is sleep. Are you sleeping at least 6 hours a night? If you're sleeping 6, that's kind of the bottom of the basics. So can you sleep 7? Can you sleep 8? Some of the IFBB pros, like people that help get pro cards, sleep is extremely important for hormonal health as well as muscle recovery and joint recovery. So there's a lot of components that sleep impacts our fitness and physical goals. So they would sleep, 7 to 8 hours a night, and then we try to get 1 or 2 extra hour nap, here or there throughout the week when we could. Sleep was very important. The higher level of achievement somebody wants to achieve, the more sleep matters. So we have podcast 1149. It's a mindset podcast titled Creating a Healthier Sleep Pattern. You can check that one out. Now, the next thing we look at is hydration. Are you drinking a minimum of half your body weight in ounces of fluid a day? I'll let you do the math there for a second. So half your body weight, you're going to try to drink that in ounces a day. Now, if you don't do ounces, if you can use Google Translate and make that transition. But if you're at that number, that's just the minimum of ordinary. Can you get to 3/4 of your body weight in ounces of fluid? Can you get to 1 times your body weight in ounces of fluid? Then you're really doing well at the ordinary. How about nutrition? Are you within an appropriate range of your calories every day? Calories don't have to be to a singular number. That's kind of ridiculous, and you'll never hit that exact number. But we typically have a range. On training days, I might want to hit, say 3,000 to 3,200. But then on non-training days, maybe only 2,600 to 2,800. So maybe you give yourself a 200 calorie range. But are you consistent with that range on training days and then on non-training days? Or are you kind of all over the place? Some days you're high, some days you're crazy low, and there's like 500, 600, or 1,000 calorie swings from day to day. How about protein? Are you hitting at least 0.6 grams of protein per pound of body weight? And if you are, that's the minimum. That's the minimum of extraordinary. Ordinary. Jeez whiz. That's not extraordinary. That's a minimum of ordinary. Can you get to 0.8? Can you get to 1 gram? What about meal timing? Are you eating early in the day to kind of get your body fed and hydrated and make sure it doesn't gain a bunch of cortisol throughout the day or start to produce a bunch of cortisol throughout the day, which negatively impacts just our overall feeling and how the body operates? What about food choices? Are you eating quote unquote healthy foods, or are you trying to squeeze in a bunch of junk that doesn't really do you any good? How about training? Are you consistent? Are you at least showing up every week? If it's once a week, can you get to twice? Can you get to 3 times? Can you get to 4 times? Can you better your ordinary? Are you even at ordinary? And then if you're only in the minimum of the ordinary, can you at least get to the top of the ordinary? Before you can be extraordinary, you have to first be ordinary. So are you ordinary? Are you at least doing the basics? Are you at least getting what would be the minimum of normal? You have to get that before you can then be above that. So if you're falling behind in any of these areas, you have to focus on them and address them. And you have to get yourself to become ordinary in the basics before you can ever do anything that allows you to be extraordinary. What's great is once you get to ordinary, then any effort that you do will start to put you above ordinary, and it'll help you become extraordinary. So, do you want to be extraordinary? If you do, you first have to be ordinary. Are you? Are you doing well with the basics? Check out the podcasts that we shared in any of the areas that you think you might be falling behind. Set forth a plan to build upon it and check in on your efforts and see if you can get everything to baseline, and then you can start to work on being extraordinary. Okay? Well, if you have any questions, if you want any help with anything, if you're not sure what to do in any of the areas, please reach out. Our email is brutalirongym@gmail.com. I'm always happy to help. If you like our podcast, whether it's today's podcast or the podcast in general, please share the podcast. When you share it, let people know that we answer questions for free, so that way they understand kind of what the benefit of this podcast is. And then thank you to those who donate to support the podcast so we can actually do that, so we can answer people's questions for free. You can donate on the website at www.brutalirongym.com. There's options for one-time donation, monthly donation, yearly donation, even just $5 a month. It does add up and it does help. Also, if you like the information we share in our podcast, you can find more from us on our social media channels. On Instagram, I post there every day, and YouTube a lot more than I used to. So you can find us and follow us under the name Brutal Iron Gym. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.